October, another dev call. The leaves are turning, the nights are lengthening, and our thoughts everywhere are turning to the questions of dependency management with desks. So just in time, we have Midsum Salrux joining us to come to the rescue with Herd. Hello, Midsum.
Hi, good to be here.
And I'm going to switch my audio just to make sure that I can hear you for sure. It's kind of flaky. All right. So tell us a little about Herd and where it came from and what it's supposed to do.
Sure. So Herd is a dependency management system for Urbit desks. It's pretty simple. It's basically just like a thin layer over existing operations from Clay, namely the fuse operation. And your dependencies are, your desk depends on other desks. So, every desk depends on the base desk. It might depend on the garden desk. It might depend on other application or library desks. And it also is distributed as part of Citadel, Little Wolfers project, and it uses that to create a template desk for you. You're making a new project.
So what's the fundamental problem that we're running into that we're trying to solve with this?
Sure. So if you've ever pulled up any Urbit application on GitHub and kind of poke through there, you'll notice that, in the lib directory and the marks and all that, you'll have a lot of files that have nothing to do with the actual project itself, just a lot of system libraries and things that need to be included just to make the application work. So if you start using Herd, you can just distribute the actual code that runs your application and have the other stuff pulled in when you build your desk.
So it pulls in on the desk itself, or is it linking it somehow in Clay via from its original source?
Sure. So the way it ends up working is that you'll have two desks, one of which is your dev desk. Let's say you're making an application called Sandbox. That'll be sandbox-dev. And then your build desk, which would just be Sandbox, which is what gets built by Herd and what you would install and distribute. But when you're just distributing the source code and developing on it, you don't need to have all the extra files around.
Okay, cool. Well, shall we take a look at what's going on with it?
Sure. Let me share my screen here. Yeah, so just to make things clear, I'm just going to do a quick demo here. So we're going to make a new desk called call demo. And
can we make the text a little bit bigger? I think this might be hard to see on the YouTube.
Sure. How's that look? Is that any better?
It's probably fine.
Okay. Yeah. So what we did here is, so Herd is a pair of threads in the Citadel desk. And the first one is Herd init. So this sets up a desk that has all the necessary files to start developing with Herd. It's called call demo. We can go ahead and mount that. And so you can see that it has a desk.build, desk.docket0, this desk.herd file, which is probably new to a lot of people, and then lib, mar, sir, all the typical things in a desk. And we can actually get rid of the lib directory since we're not going to use it here. So let me just pull up this Herd file. That's going to be new to a lot of people. Right. So your Herd file is basically what specifies where your dependencies are, like which desks your desk depends on. So by default, you only depend on base, since that's going to have it's difficult to imagine a desk that doesn't depend on those files, just general system libraries. We can start adding other things to it, like maybe we want to use something from the garden desk. And that's just another line here. And each of these, you have which ship you're getting the desk from. Right now, typically just use our, but in the future, we could add getting those from remote ships, so you don't have to have it installed locally. But for now, typically you would have it installed locally. Which desk you depend on, which is right here. And this is either track. Well, this is a version. So it can either be track like this for the latest version, or you could have it be a timestamp, or you could be a version number. And with this file, yeah, so let's add something that needs a dependency so we can see how this works. So here's a just a very simple hello world generator, but we're importing a file that's not on our desk, this MIP file from the garden desk. So typically this wouldn't work because you're importing a file that you don't have.
A MIP is map of maps for...
Right. Yeah, we're not actually using it. We're just adding it as an import to show things off. So what we can do here is we want to use the Citadel commit thread, which is when you're developing with Citadel, you're going to use this instead of bar commit to commit your local changes. But unlike bar commit, this also builds your brings in all of your dependencies into your dev desk to make your build desk. Okay, and we see all the files got added. That's quite a lot of files.
So does this show up on, this shows up in Clay and on Earth at the same time when you do this commit?
Well, yeah, we could mount the desk and see what that results in. So mount the build desk. And that takes a moment because there's a lot of files there. Yeah, and here we have this giant desk with everything pulled in from the base and garden desks. But if you compare this to the dev desk, there's very little that's actually in the dev desk. And to show that this works, we can just call that generator, that import there. And yeah, so this file that we import gets pulled in automatically.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about versions, right? So you're talking about file versions, desk versions. Right now it's kind of Wild West. Mm-hmm. We're still living in the aftermath of the age of, if you wanted to build something pre-distribution, you had to pull in a GitHub repo and manually mount and commit everything to make it work. Mm-hmm. This means that we haven't really developed a universal ethos of versioning, say, library files and the like. So right. How do you handle this when you're tracking dependencies and you're figuring out what goes on with those files?
Sure. So basically, this line here, or this tuple item here, it's this type. So buckpat, track, or case. So that means this can either be track, which means just take the local latest version, or a case, which is one of a few different things. We take the bunt of that. It can be an integer number, which means that just sequential versions. It can be a timestamp. So right, so it can be a timestamp, which would be something like, give me the version from the beginning of October, or it can be a labeled version. So that comes directly from Clay. And you could put, if you wanted to get the version from today, the 18th, 17th?
19th.
19th. So yeah, you could change this to depend on the version from today instead of the latest version.
What resolution does it have if there's multiple commits made on a given day.
Well, yeah, you could. I don't remember exactly.
You can drive it more local. I'm just wondering what would happen if you remained more general and you had multiple commits on the same day.
I think it. So if you have one, I think this is like what I've written here is equivalent to. I don't know exactly the syntax, but it's like, you know.
Right. It's
equivalent to like 12 like midnight. So if there's a commit at like 6 a.m., then it would be before then. Yeah, at any rate, you can specify it this way, and it ought to still work. Yeah. So you can depend on, let's say that I had some version a few months ago that I wanted, I could depend on it that way. And there's also, even though it's not really used, you can have labeled commits. So you could like tag a release version and do it that way. I don't think there's actually any way exposed to the user to do that yet, but it's supported in here.
And this is all exposing Clay functionality that's already built into Clay. This is
right.
This is Herd building on top of the capabilities that Clay has as a version controlled file system.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Herd is actually like doing very little besides just telling Clay what to do.
Mm-hmm. So when we're thinking about, so this is really a developer side tool, and then when you're marking things to be distributed, there's going to be a standard canonical version of the files that you're distributing that's going out on the desk that you're putting out. Because obviously, if you have your local development environment, your own date tags and the like are completely peculiar to the system that you're working on and the workflow that led you to this point. So you wouldn't tag. I mean, I guess if you were tagging against remote desks, then you would want to actually query and see which version they're exposing at a given timestamp, for instance. But this is really architected around you're working locally and you're syncing back and forth as you prepare something to be made public and published.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't distribute the call demo -dev desk. You distribute the call demo desk. And as you saw, it has all the files just explicitly in there. And this like call demo dev is just what you would be working on like internally to yourself or your team.
What does it do? What does Herd do if you refer to something that's not present on any of the desks? Like you try and import a library and it's not in any of the desks.
Right. So you just try and import that. It'll fail the same way it would fail if you weren't using Herd.
Okay.
So
it'll build and then it'll give us something.
Right.
Other. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see here's the commit thread over here. There's and you can see that it's pretty short. It's really just sending pokes to Kiln with being part of Clay.
Here's a Clay theoretical question for you. What happens if you write in a future version and then push a new Clay commit to that desk before that future version arrives?
So if you mean what I think you mean, let's find out. Or that'll probably over.
They're playing to stump us in the questions there.
Right. Okay. Let's build that, and it doesn't seem to like that very much.
Missing.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah. Right. So basically, it comes back and complains that we don't actually have the desk at that version.
Justly.
Right, understandably.
So will this deal with cascading dependencies of libraries on other libraries all the way back? You import MIP, say, but MIP relies on libdocket or, like there, you can imagine chains of things going back several steps. Will this automatically catch and build each of those as you work through it?
Right. So the issue of like cascading dependencies, it can only really exist in the context of a dev desk here, so that if we were depending on MIP from Garden dev, if Garden were using herd, then you would have that problem. But the actual distributable Garden desk is guaranteed to have all the dependencies for actually running and building everything there. So that issue doesn't really come up.
Yep. Okay. So what other tools do we have as far as the threads go?
Right.
Commit, we've seen, yeah.
Right. So there are 2 threads. We have commit, and we have herd init, which sets up the initial desk. And this one does even less. It basically tells Citadel to make a new desk with a certain template. And Citadel is a prior existing project made by Little Wolfer that you give it a set of files, and it'll treat those files as a template for making new desks. So you can have like a Gall app template, like a template for a desk with, it's meant to be like just a blank desk template and things like that.
Okay. And is that provided as an instance of a desk, or is that provided as a list of files, like a docket style?
Yeah, that's a list of files, and I could go into that here. Yeah, so you can see we have this directory within the Citadel desk where it's all these different templates, and the herd template is right here. So it's just these files you see here. Desk.bill, desk.herd, sys.kelvin. And another thing that's worth bringing up is you can depend on desks that have their own agents, and those agents aren't going to just run other second instances of them, because your desk.bill in your developer desk is going to take priority and not agents.
So tell us a little bit about the code, the composition process.
Sure. So it actually went through kind of a lot of revisions, and all of my earlier ideas for this were not anywhere near this simple. Originally, I wanted to have an agent that would subscribe to all of the files on your desk and all of the files that it depended on, and whenever one of them changed, it would make some change. But eventually I realized that that was too complicated and brittle. So that's when I came up with the idea to just replace the typical bar commit way of doing things and just have it build when you committed.
So this is relying a lot on Kiln, which is the Clay managing agent, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's right. And Kiln is actually, when you do bar commit, that's basically a special Dojo shortcut for sending pokes to Kiln, which is ultimately what the same thing that this thread is doing. It's sending a commit poke, it's sending some fuse pokes, a merge poke, and you could duplicate everything that's going on in this thread by just typing a series of Dojo commands. This is just basically for convenience sake.
What's a beef?
A beef is
I guess it's herd. It has to have some sort of
exactly. Yeah, so a beef is just one of the list elements of your herd file.
Okay.
So this is a beef.
Okay.
It's a ship, it's a desk, and a version. So I mean, there's sort of a pun to it. Like a herd is a list of beef.
Yeah. So syntactically, why this one's kind of for the Hoon School level questions here. Syntactically, why are we marking the current ship as sen hour, as opposed to just writing hour and getting the actual ship identity?
So Basically, that's not. It comes into our. We have access to it from the thread, but we don't have access to it in this file.
Mm-hmm.
So, just if it was just our without the sen, that's not in our subject because we have no subjects when we're evaluating the hoon for this file.
Right. There's no bowl, so there's
exactly
no other information to put there. Yep.
Right. So it has to be injected by this thread that gets it on this line.
Although I guess that raises an interesting side question for me, which is if we are building things with Ford runes, for instance, how much control can we exercise over the subject that the file sees when it's built? That's kind of that's a whole other thing. But
well, yeah, there's probably something clever you could do to make it work, but that's beyond what I have any knowledge of.
Yep. All right. What else should we look at with respect to herd?
I could pull up a larger desk that uses this. So this is Tendybot, the source code for that. Some people might have seen it on the network. And
this is the one that uses Con that we point people at if they're saying, how do you use Con? And we say, well, go look at Tendybot.
That's right. It's a very simple app that just, it's a chatbot that fetches stock and crypto prices. So the app directory looks pretty conventional. The lib directory has a lot fewer files in it than you might be used to. And, is there
a question here too? Yeah. Is there an interface component in the UE for Citadel?
Currently, no. Currently, it's just a pair of threads that use some of the Citadel plumbing that you have to call from Dojo. Mm-hmm. And yes, it does come bundled with Citadel. You can install Citadel from distr, dazad, midev, and you'll get herd along with it. Yeah, you'll notice that the mark directory and the sir directory aren't completely empty because you actually need, the docket 0 mark and some other marks just to make the herd mark work, which you use to read your herd file. And yeah, there's really not a lot to it. Do we have any other questions?
Let me see. Let me monitor they could be typing here. Yeah, it's an interesting problem where it solves a problem that we're all running into as we build desks. Because I think right now the standard practice I would say that I'm seeing people do is merging off of base or something else, and then immediately deleting the agent docket file so you don't accidentally clobber whatever you have installed.
Mm-hmm.
And so this lets you step around that kind of kludgy workaround way of building desks and building something more elegant. And so part of this is afforded by Citadel giving you desk templates, and then part of this is by herd manually handling the things that you need involved without you having to actively think about including the current version of whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm hoping that everybody who has this complicated symlink setup when they're building multiple desks can at some point get rid of that and just distribute things with herd.
Yep. Well, I think that's what we're aiming for. We are planning a sort of a developer experience week in November, and we're going to come back and highlight a lot of like tools like this, but like ways of working and thinking about how do you work efficiently in the kind of environment that Urbit is presenting to you. Like there are things that Urbit does well. Tools like herd are exposing that by giving you access to what's going on with Clay. But obviously there are things that we're having to figure out, like what are the best practices when you're working with having to synchronize and commit things regularly, when you're having to worry about putting your desks together based on some template or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, here's another question. So this is like a code bundler. It takes all your dependencies from your desk.herd and smooshes them into your dev desk.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what it does. It just takes your dev desk and all your dependencies and makes a new desk with everything.
But it only takes the dependencies you need, the ones you actually invoke, not everything from the source.
No, it does take everything. So,
does it? Okay.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that, and the reason that it's not extremely wasteful, is that Clay isn't just a file system; it's like a revision control system. So you're just copying pointers, and you don't have 10 copies of your library files on your desk.
Right. If it's the same noun tree, then it knows to point to the same noun tree in both cases. Yeah.
And you saw when we it took barely any time when we built that desk, but when we actually mounted it, it took a moment because it was actually, copying everything at that point.
Yep.
Structural sharing.
Yeah, I mean this gets back towards Ted's remarks at assembly on the library static versus dynamic library dependencies and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So very good.
And the whole referential transparency idea comes into this a lot because at a certain point you can rely on a timestamp of a library and be pretty confident that that's not going to change out from under you.
Now there will be some interesting things if you do start to permit access to other developer desks. Then we'll have some interesting problems if the ship is offline, for instance.
Yeah.
Clay gives you a global namespace, but it doesn't guarantee that you actually have access, permissions, existence of the things that you're referring to, of course.
Right. And there's some cool possibilities around getting the stuff remotely. But right now, if you just want to guarantee that it works, just download the desk in the usual way and just get it from your local machine when you're building it.
Yep. All right. Very good. Are there other questions, or should we hop over to the Google Meet for interactive? All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up there then. Thank you, Midsum Solrux. We also, I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, this was one of the winners of the Assembly Hackathon project. I think this was most Urbity code.
Mm-hmm.
I think was the designation that it got. So it was it's a much needed entry into our field of getting things to work more smoothly for us. So thanks for coming on, talking about it, and we'll see you all over at the Q&A in a moment.
Thanks for having me.